I didn't expect to see him again. Not in this lifetime. When our divorce papers were signed 2 years ago, I told myself it was the end. No more alpha temper. No more cold silence. No more waking up to an empty side of the bed and pretending it didn't hurt. I rebuilt myself from the ground up, new job, new friends, new city, new apartment. This place was supposed to be my sanctuary. A clean slate with no memories of him. At least that's what I believed. This morning, the building slipped a notice under my door. Management will conduct rent follow-ups today. My heart thudded fast as I walked to the door. The rent was 3 days late. I'd rehearsed my apology over and over. Be polite. Explain the delay. It'll be fine. I opened the door with a professional smile. And every practiced word, vanished. The air left my lungs in a silent rush. My blood ran cold, then hot, all at once. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. It was him. Noah Hale. My ex-husband. My once mate. The alpha who broke me. He looked harder. The years had sanded away any softness, leaving behind a man of sharp edges and cold, calculating grace. He stood in my hallway as if he owned the very air. Adrian. My name in his voice, that low, controlled alpha tone I knew better than my own, was a physical blow. It unlocked a vault of memories. The cafe always softened in the evenings. Warm lights, low chatter, the smell of roasted beans settling like a blanket. I was wiping the counter when the door chimed. I didn't need to look up. He'd been coming every evening for a week. But that night felt different. Noah walked in, and his gaze found mine instantly. My breath caught. He gave me a small, soft smile that felt like it belonged only to me. He approached the counter. "Long day?" he asked gently. "A little," cleared my throat. "Your usual? Only if you make it." My hands froze. He didn't flirt with anyone else. Ever. I could feel the weight of his gaze as I worked. "What about you?" he asked. "Good week." I dared to look at him. "Nothing special. Just work." "Sometimes nothing special is a blessing," he said quietly. "Means nothing hurt you." His words landed deep. Too deep for someone who barely knew me. I set his drink on the counter. He didn't take it. Instead he leaned closer, eyes warm, curious. "What's your name?" I smiled before I could stop myself. "You've been here a week," I teased softly. "And you're only asking now?" That slow, devastating smile lit his face. "I wanted to hear you say it." My pulse stumbled. "Adrian." He repeated it under his breath, like testing the taste of it. Then, deliberately, his fingers brushed mine as he took the cup. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said. Not a question, a promise. And he did. Every single day. That was how it began. A slow burn built from small moments and quiet evenings. Then my first real heat hit, early, intense, overwhelming. I was shaking alone in my apartment when he knocked. He stepped inside and my scent hit him like a storm front. His eyes darkened, instincts rising, but he didn't touch me. Not until I asked. Not until biology dragged us both under. From then on, we couldn't stay away. The bond tugged, pulling us back together again and again. We dated. We fought. We tried. Eventually, he proposed quietly, almost reluctantly. "I know this isn't how it should have happened," he said. "But we're bonded. And I don't want to pretend we're not connected anymore." I loved him. Or maybe I loved the version of him I met in that cafe. So I said yes. Marriage wasn't disastrous, it was hollow. The heat bond lingered between us like a ghost he refused to acknowledge. Whenever it pulled, he would withdraw. Sleep on the couch, bury himself in work, lock himself behind walls I could never breach. We avoided intimacy because he needed control. We avoided fights because I hated shouting. We lived together like two shadows sharing the same house. Small arguments became silence. Silence became distance. Distance quietly became the end. The final break wasn't dramatic. No screaming. No tears. I woke up one morning and realized I felt more alone beside him than I ever did without him. I felt like a responsibility he was too honorable to abandon, but too unwilling to truly love. So I packed my bags, left my ring on the table, and walked out. He didn't stop me, didn't chase, didn't fight. And that silence told me everything. The memory faded. Pain stayed. I was back in my doorway, staring at the man who had once been everything and nothing to me. You're the landlord? I whispered. I bought the property last month. His gaze swept over me, sharp and unreadable. Didn't expect to find you here. My stomach flipped. Of all the cities, all the buildings, he had to own mine. Heat crawled up my neck. I stepped back instinctively. I can pay, I said quickly. Tomorrow. He stepped inside, and his scent, cedar, rain, alpha, flooded my senses, invading the home I'd built without him. My knees went weak. I folded my arms across my chest. You live alone? He asked. He already knew. An alpha always knows. Yes. My voice was thin, defensive. Silence thickened between us. You didn't tell me you moved, he said. His voice was low, almost dangerous in its restraint. I let out a bitter laugh. Why would I, Noah? We're nothing anymore. His eyes flashed. Quick, dark, possessive. Gone in an instant, but enough to make my breath hitch. His gaze dropped to my lips before meeting my eyes again. You still smell the same, he murmured. My heart stuttered painfully. Don't, I whispered. Don't start. I'm not starting. He took a step closer. The air burned. You're the one who ran. Heat flared in my chest. We divorced because you hated the bond. You said it yourself. I didn't want a forced bond, he snapped. Control fraying, voice deepening. Not one created by heat. Not one I didn't choose. Fresh pain ripped open inside me. So you're here now, why? To remind me? His jaw clenched. Something flickered in his gaze. Anger, instinct, regret. Something he'd die before naming. I'm here because you're my tenant, he said coldly. And tenants follow the rules. He set a folded paper on my table, new building policies. All signed by him. Then he walked to the door. Didn't look back. We'll be seeing a lot of each other from now on, Adrian. The door clicked shut. His scent lingered, warm and dangerous. And the worst part? Some small, traitorous part of me had missed it. The click of the door was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. I stood there, frozen, long after he was gone. His scent was everywhere. Cedar and rain, and something uniquely Noah. It clung to the air, to my clothes, to the very walls of my sanctuary, violating the one space I had kept for myself. My legs finally gave out, and I collapsed onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. The folded paper he'd left behind sat on my coffee table like a ticking bomb, waiting to explode. New building policies. I didn't need to read them to know they were a declaration of war. He was back. And he wasn't just back in the city. He was my landlord. The power dynamic had shifted so violently it left me dizzy. He controlled the roof over my head. He could enter with notice. He could raise the rent. He could make my life a living hell if he wanted to. And from the look in his eyes, I knew he wanted to. My phone buzzed, shattering the heavy silence. It was my best friend, Maya. Hey, did you talk to the landlord? Are you getting evicted? Do I need to come over with wine and a crowbar? I tried to speak, but only a choked sound came out. I took a shaky breath. Maya, I whispered, the word cracking. It's him. A beat of silence. Him who? Your creepy neighbor with the collection of garden gnomes. No. I squeezed my eyes shut, as if that could erase his image from my mind. Noah. The line went so quiet I thought we'd been disconnected. Then, Noah? You're Noah? Your ex-husband Noah? That Noah is your new landlord. The string of questions felt like punches. Yes. Adrian, you need to get out of there. Right now. Pack a bag. You can stay with me. This is insane. She wasn't wrong. It was insane. But a stubborn, foolish part of me rebelled. I had worked so hard for this life, this independence. I had bled for it. I wasn't going to let him chase me out of my own home. I can't run, Maya. Not again. I just got here. This isn't about running. It's about survival. That man is a predator. And he just cornered you in your own den. She wasn't wrong. But the memory of his eyes, the flicker of something that wasn't just anger, it held me in place. I have to stay. At least for now. We talked for a few more minutes, her worry a palpable thing through the phone. After I hung up, the silence in the apartment felt even heavier. I was adrift in a sea of my own memories, and Noah's scent was the current pulling me under. The next week was a special kind of torture. Every creak of the floorboards, every sound from the hallway, made my heart leap into my throat. I was a live wire of nervous energy, jumping at shadows. I paid the rent immediately through an online portal, a pathetic attempt to avoid any more face-to-face contact. It worked for exactly 7 days. On the 8th day, a firm knock echoed through my apartment at 7 in the evening. I knew with a sickening certainty who it was. I considered not answering, but he was the landlord. He had keys. He could come in if he wanted. I opened the door, my body tense like a bowstring. Noah stood there, dressed down in dark jeans and a simple gray t-shirt that did nothing to hide the powerful build of his shoulders. He looked more like the man from the cafe, and somehow that was even more dangerous. Adrian. His gaze swept over me, taking in everything. My messy bun, my worn-out socks, the tension radiating off me. The payment came through. I told you it would, I said, my voice tighter than I intended. He held up a small, elegant paper bag. A peace offering. I stared at it, then at him, utterly bewildered. What? From the bakery you used to like. The one with the almond croissants. He extended the bag. When I didn't take it, he set it gently on the small table in my hallway. I remember you loved them. The gesture was disarming, completely unexpected. This was the Noah from the flashback, the one who noticed small things, who brought warmth instead of cold silence. Why? The question escaped me before I could stop it. He leaned a shoulder against the doorframe, invading my space without even stepping inside. Because the last time we spoke, it was tense. We're going to be seeing each other. I'd prefer it not be a battle every time. My mind raced. Was this a game? A new tactic? Lure me into a false sense of security, then strike? I don't want your croissants, Noah. Then throw them away, he said, infuriatingly calm. But they're there if you change your mind. His eyes held mine, and the air between us grew thick, charged with all the things we weren't saying. He could feel it too. The pull, the history, the raw, unhealed wound of our bond. He straightened from the doorframe. I also came to tell you I'll be having some work done on the building's plumbing tomorrow. The water will be shut off from 9 to 5. You might want to make plans to be out. It was a perfectly reasonable, normal thing for a landlord to say. But the way he said it, the subtle reminder that my sanctuary could be disrupted at his command, made it impossible to ignore the shift in power. Fine. I'll be at work anyway. Good. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. It didn't reach his eyes. Enjoy your evening, Adrian. He turned and walked down the hall, his presence lingering long after he'd gone. I looked down at the innocent paper bag. My stomach growled, betraying me. With a trembling hand, I picked it up. The sweet, buttery scent of almonds and pastry wafted out. He remembered. I slammed the door shut, leaning against it, the bag clutched in my hand. I wanted to hate him. I needed to hate him. But this small, thoughtful act was a crack in the wall of my resentment. It reminded me that the man who broke me was also the man who once knew the name of my favorite bakery. It was the most dangerous gift he could have given me. The paper bag felt like a live coal in my hand. The sweet, buttery scent of the croissant was a direct assault on my resolve. He remembered. After all this time, after the divorce, the silence, the wreckage of us, he remembered something so small, so stupid, and somehow more intimate than anything we shared in that last miserable year. With a strangled sound, I stormed into the kitchen and threw the bag into the trash. It wasn't enough. I needed it gone. I grabbed a wad of paper towels and shoved them on top, burying the pastry like a guilty secret. But the memory it stirred refused to stay buried. I took my phone and typed to Maya. He brought me a croissant. Her reply came instantly. He did what? From where? I typed back. That bakery. The one I liked. 3 dots flashed, vanished, then flashed again, her fury almost visible through the screen. Adrian. That is psychological warfare. That is him planting a flag. Do not eat the croissant. It's probably poisoned with nostalgia and regret. I let out a shaky laugh and typed, "It's in the trash." Her response came immediately, "Good, stay strong. And call me if that alpha idiot shows his face again." I put the phone down. The silence pressed in again. Thick, suffocating, haunted by his scent and the knowledge of the croissant sitting in my trash. I lasted 10 minutes. 10 miserable minutes of pacing the living room, pretending to watch TV, staring at a book without reading a single word. Finally, with a groan of self-disgust, I marched back into the kitchen, fished the bag out of the trash, and pulled out the croissant. It was still warm. He must have gone straight there before seeing me. I broke off a piece. One bite, and a memory slammed into me. Too vivid, too warm to fight off. A Sunday morning. Sunlight through our old apartment window. Me with a crossword on my lap. Him reading the news beside me. A box of croissants open between us. He'd brushed a flake off my lip and kissed me. Soft, unhurried. Promise I thought would last forever. I ate the entire croissant in silence, standing over the sink like a criminal destroying evidence. Tasted like heaven and humiliation. The next day, the water was shut off exactly when he said it would be. I spent the entire day at the design firm forcing myself to focus on deadlines and client emails. But every time the office door opened, my head snapped up like an idiot. He wouldn't show up here, right? He didn't. But the shadow of him followed me all day. When I returned home, exhausted, I found a notice slipped under my door. It was a simple memo about the completed plumbing work. But at the bottom, written in Noah's sharp, precise handwriting, was a note. Water pressure should be better now. It was weak on the top floor. N. I crushed the paper in my fist. Why did something so ordinary feel like another move in his slow, deliberate siege? He was in the pipes, in the walls, in my peace of mind. On Saturday, I was dragging the recycling bin outside when I saw him. He was across the street, talking to Mrs. Gable, the sweet old lady from the ground floor. He was smiling, a genuine smile, the kind he hadn't given me in years. He looked relaxed, human. Then he saw me. The smile didn't vanish, but it changed. It went focused, intentional, and he gave me a slow nod. The final straw came Tuesday. A large, flat package leaned against my door when I got home. My name printed neatly on the label. No return address. A cold dread settled in my stomach as I carried it inside and cut it open. It was a painting, an abstract piece, swirling blues and grays, split by a bold slash of gold. Stunning. Exactly my taste. Exactly the style I collected. There was no note. None was needed. This wasn't croissants. This wasn't water pressure updates. This was him saying, "I remember what moves you. I remember what you love. I still know you." My breath caught. He wasn't just my landlord. He wasn't just my ex-husband. He was a phantom limb. A part of me I had severed, now returning with full sensation, full ache. I didn't throw the painting away. I didn't call Maya. I propped it against the wall and stared at that slash of gold cutting through the storm. And I knew, with terrifying clarity, I was already losing. The guilt from the croissant sat in my stomach for days, heavy and sour. I avoided Maya's calls entirely, letting every ring go to voicemail and replying with the same excuse. Swamped with work. Talk soon. I was a terrible liar. But confessing? Even worse. How could I tell her I hadn't just eaten his peace offering? I'd savored every damn crumb like it was nostalgia baked in butter, so I drowned myself in work. I threw my whole body into a new project at the design firm, staying late until my apartment became nothing more than a place to collapse, exhausted and dreamless. But Noah was everywhere. A ghost threaded through the machinery of my daily life. The improved water pressure in my shower felt too much like his hands. And the painting, the one I told myself I hated, hung on the blank wall opposite my bed. That slash of gold cut through me every morning, an accusing reminder of everything I was trying to outrun. A week after the painting appeared, I came home to the building's lobby dim and silent. A notice was taped to the elevator door. Out of service. Maintenance in progress. I stared at it for a long second before groaning. Of course. My apartment was on the 4th floor. With a resigned breath, I pushed open the stairwell door. My footsteps echoed up the concrete shaft. Too loud, too alone. I was halfway up the 2nd flight when a scent hit me, sharp, clean, unmistakable. Cedar and rain. My head snapped up. He was there, leaning against the railing on the landing above me, haloed by the weak emergency light. A simple black t-shirt, worn jeans, a toolbox at his feet. He'd been working. "Adrian," he said, voice warm and too familiar in the cold stairwell. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Noah." I forced myself up the remaining steps, stopping on the same landing but pressing my back against the wall like distance alone could shield me. "Fixing the elevator?" "Trying to." His eyes dragged over me. My wrinkled work shirt, the slump of my shoulders. "Long day." The question hit harder than it should have. A perfect echo of our earliest conversations in the cafe. The ones that started everything. Of course he would use that against me. This was his pattern, using the past to stitch himself back into my present. "You could say that," I said tightly. He took a step forward. Just one. But it closed the space between us like a trap. Up close, I could see the faint sheen of sweat on his brow, the powerful lines of his arms, the tension coiled in him. "I saw you hung the painting," he said softly. My breath caught. "How?" "Your living room window faces the street." His mouth tilted in a barely there smile. "I saw the light hit it last night. It looks good there." He'd been watching. Of course he had. And instead of fear, a dangerous warmth unfurled low in my stomach. He was noticing. He still noticed. "Why are you doing this, Noah?" My voice cracked into a whisper I hated. The croissant, the painting showing up everywhere. "What do you want from me?" He moved before I could blink. One hand braced on the wall beside my head, his body caging me in without touching me. Heat radiated from him. His scent wrapped around me, tugging on a bond one had fought to break, and failed. "What do I want?" he murmured, voice dropping into that deep alpha register that vibrated through my bones. His eyes searched mine, burning, accusing, desperate. "I want to know why you ran." "We were divorced." I shot back, anger flaring like a shield. "What else was I supposed to do?" "You didn't just leave the marriage." His voice cracked. "You vanished. You erased yourself. You didn't just break the bond. You tried to burn the whole world down behind you." His jaw tightened, the alpha control slipping. "You didn't even fight." A sting hit my eyes. I blinked hard, furious at the tears. "Fight for what, Noah? For a man who told me our bond was a mistake? You said it was forced. You said you didn't choose it." My voice trembled. What was I supposed to fight for? My own humiliation. His face shifted, raw, tormented, exposed. "You think I didn't want you?" he growled, low and savage. "You think that bond, forced or not, wasn't the most real thing I've ever felt?" He leaned in, his lips barely brushing the shell of my ear. The contact sent a bolt of electricity through me. "I still feel it, Adrian," he whispered. "Even now. It's a phantom limb for me too." His breath hit my skin, warm and devastating. "And it aches." But before I could react, before I could run or scream or drag him closer, the stairwell lights blazed back on. "Oh, evening, boys." Mr. Gable from 2B called cheerfully as he trudged up the stairs with his grocery bag. Noah stepped back instantly, mask snapping back into place. Landlord, composed, untouchable. "Elevator should be fixed by morning," he told Mr. Gable evenly. He picked up his toolbox. Then he looked at me. One last look. Quiet, loaded, destroying me from the inside. "Good night, Adrian." He descended the stairs, and I slumped against the wall, shaking, my hand pressed over the wild thrum of my heart. I didn't know how long I stood there, pressed against the cold concrete wall, my skin still buzzing where his breath had touched it. "It aches." Those two words were a key turning in a lock I had welded shut with fire and fury years ago. He felt it too. Everything I had built my survival on. The anger, the bitterness, the hard shell around my heart, began to crack. For years I'd convinced myself that he had walked away untouched, that he'd shrugged off our shattered bond like shedding an old coat. But he wasn't untouched. He wasn't over it. He was haunted just like me. The walk up the remaining flights felt endless, my legs heavy, my heartbeat too loud in my ears. When I finally reached my apartment, I locked the door and leaned against it as if he might appear on the other side at any second. My gaze drifted to the painting across the room. That slash of gold seemed different now. Not a symbol of intrusion, but of something unbroken, something neither of us had managed to kill. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Maya. Her name flashed insistently, almost scolding. But I couldn't answer. I couldn't listen to her call him an idiot or a manipulative alpha. Not now. Not when the sound of his voice, raw, cracked open and honest, still reverberated through me. I silenced the phone. I moved through my nightly routine on autopilot, washing my face, changing clothes, turning off lights. Everything felt wrong, heightened. The water from the tap, the water he had fixed, felt warmer on my skin, like an echo of his hands. The air felt charged. The silence felt watchful. By the time I crawled into bed, exhaustion had settled deep in my bones, but sleep wouldn't take me. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw him. Not the landlord who slipped notices under my door. Not the cold ex-husband who signed the divorce papers without a word. Not the alpha who told me our bond was a mistake. I saw him, the man who remembered my favorite pastry, the man who stared at the painting through my window, the man whose control shattered in a stairwell as he confessed the truth I'd needed for years. He felt the bond. He always had, and he still did. That realization moved through me like an earthquake, shaking foundations I didn't even know were still standing. This wasn't a battle anymore. It wasn't even a standoff. It was a surrender waiting to happen. As sleep finally dragged me under, the last thought that whispered through my mind was terrifying in its clarity. I wasn't afraid of him. I was afraid of the part of myself that still wanted him with a hunger that never died. The next morning, the world felt different. The colors were sharper, the air charged with a new, terrifying potential. I called in sick to work, something I never did. I was too raw, too exposed. I spent the day in a haze, jumping at every sound, my mind replaying his words in an endless loop. It aches. He didn't come by. There was no note, no text, no painted apology. The silence was its own form of torture. Had he regretted his confession? Was it just a moment of weakness in a stairwell? By evening, a restless energy crawled under my skin. I needed air. I needed to get out of the apartment that now felt too much like his domain. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door, yanking it open with more force than necessary. And there he was. His hand was raised, poised to knock. He looked as startled as I felt, his eyes wide, his usually perfect composure fractured. He was dressed down again, his hair slightly messy as if he'd been running his hands through it. We stood frozen, staring at each other in the dim hallway light. I didn't expect to see you here, I said, my voice cracking despite my best effort to sound casual. He shook his head slightly, lips pressing into a thin line. Neither did I. But we need to talk. The words were simple, but they carried a weight that made my stomach drop. Talk. Not a text. Not a passive-aggressive note. Talk. I stepped aside, letting him enter the hallway, though my mind screamed to slam the door shut. He followed, his steps quiet, deliberate. The air between us was heavy, electric. Adrian, about last night. He began, hesitating, as if choosing his words carefully. The stairwell, what I said. I meant it. I swallowed hard. You meant it? Or it was a mistake? My tone was sharper than I intended, defensive. No, he said firmly. It wasn't a mistake. I've carried that bond with me even when I pretended I hadn't. Pretended I was over you. Pretended it didn't hurt to see you gone. My heart stumbled. Every rational part of me wanted to turn away, wanted to build walls, but my body betrayed me. Leaning forward, aching toward him without permission. You think I didn't feel the same? I whispered. You think I didn't replay every word, every look, every touch we had? You think I didn't fight against wanting you? He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the faint tremor in his jaw, the way his fingers twitched like he wanted to reach out but wasn't sure if he was allowed. I know you fought, he said softly, and I know why you left. But Adrian, leaving me didn't erase the bond. It didn't erase us. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breath, the memories flooding back like a tide I couldn't stop. The cafe, the laughter, the arguments, the nights where he had been my only anchor, and I had let go. When you left, he continued, his voice dropping lower, almost a growl. It broke me. Every day I tried to convince myself that you hated me, that you were done with me. But I was wrong, and I can't pretend anymore. I opened my eyes. His stare was intense, vulnerable, the kind of look that stripped away armor, stripped away excuses. I wanted to run. I wanted to push him away, but the ache in my chest told me I couldn't. My voice faltered, but the words wanted out. I didn't leave because I didn't care. I left because I couldn't watch us destroy each other. I thought, if I walked away, maybe we'd survive in our own way. He stepped closer, bridging the last gap between us. And now, he asked, do we survive by pretending this is over? Or do we face it? Adrian, face each other. My throat burned. The walls I had built, the distance I had nurtured, they were crumbling in the warmth of his presence. I could feel the pull between us, the history, the longing, the unresolved ache of every unsaid word. I don't know if we can, I admitted, voice trembling. Then let's try, he whispered. Let's try without pretending, without anger, without fear, just us. I wanted to laugh, cry, scream, all at once. It was terrifying, this surrender, this vulnerability. But for the first time in years, I wanted it. More than I wanted to protect myself. I took a shaky step forward. He mirrored me. Our fingers brushed, then intertwined. A spark that made the world melt around us. He leaned closer, forehead resting against mine. I've wanted this for a long time, he murmured. And I'm not letting you go again. Tears blurred my vision. I don't want to go, I whispered. 3 months had passed since Noah and I decided to try again. 3 months of stolen mornings, late-night conversations, and a slow rebuilding of trust. The apartment no longer felt like a minefield, but it wasn't quite home either. Not yet. Noah was leaning against the counter, idly scrolling through his phone, while I stirred a pot of pasta on the stove. The smell of garlic and butter filled the air, but more than that, it felt like us again. Small, domestic, mundane, and perfect in its simplicity. You know, he said without looking up, if you keep stirring like that, the pasta's going to get angry at you. I smirked, tossing him a glance. The pasta? Really? You're going to defend it now? He shrugged, lips twitching. I'm a peacekeeper. Someone has to make sure dinner doesn't revolt. I laughed, shaking my head. You're ridiculous. You know that, right? And you love it? He replied, leaning closer, fingers brushing my arm as he passed. I rolled my eyes, but my heart betrayed me, skipping a beat. He was close enough that I could smell the faint cedar and rain lingering on his shirt, and suddenly the steam from the pasta didn't feel like the only thing warming the kitchen. We moved through the apartment like this for hours, slipping into the rhythm of each other's lives. Me nagging about dirty dishes, him pretending to care, me stealing bites off his plate, him grabbing my wrist and laughing when I tried to run away with food. At some point, he flopped onto the couch dramatically, flopping back like a cat. Do you know what the best part of this is? He asked, eyes glinting with mischief. What? I replied, cautious but amused. Being able to annoy you legally, he said, grinning. Legally? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Explain the legality here, Judge Noah. The law of cohabitation. It states that I'm allowed to drive you insane because I live here too. You can't escape me. I groaned, throwing a dish towel at him. That's not a law. It is now, he declared, grabbing the towel and tugging me down onto the couch beside him. And I'm enforcing it. We ended up in a heap of laughter, tangled legs, and playful swats, until the energy simmered down to a comfortable quiet. His hand found mine, fingers curling together naturally, like no time had passed. And then, as if the moment demanded it, he lifted his head, eyes soft but serious. "Adrian, I've been thinking about us, about the future." I froze for a second, my chest tightening. But this time it didn't scare me. 3 months had given me a foundation. Small victories, stolen kisses, shared laughter. I was ready to hear him out. "Okay," I said, heart racing, teasing just a little to keep my nerves at bay. "What kind of future are we talking about? Plants again? Or something more dramatic?" He smirked, leaning closer, lips brushing my ear. "Something more dramatic. Kids." I blinked. "Kids? Yes," he said, voice low and sure. "I want them. With you. I've wanted them for a while now." I laughed, half in disbelief, half in anticipation. All right, how many? And don't say one, because I refuse to raise a lonely child." "3," he said instantly, grinning. "2 boys, 1 girl." I raised an eyebrow. "2 boys? Absolutely not. Girls first. Always." "Nope," he shot back, mock indignation. "Boys first, then girls. Balance is important." I laughed, shaking my head, stepping closer until we were nose to nose. "You're insufferable. And you love it?" he whispered, tugging me close and pressing a soft kiss to my lips. The afternoon faded around us, full of laughter, arguments over hypothetical names, playful nudges, and lingering touches. For the first time in a long time, the apartment felt like home. Not because of the walls or the furniture, but because of him and the life we were slowly rebuilding together. And as we curled up on the couch later, tangled in blankets and soft murmurs, I realized that this, our chaotic, messy, unpredictable little life, was exactly where I was meant to be.